today we embark on an exploration of how creativity and technology converge to redefine storytelling in our digital age. Mr. Pradeep will illuminate how advancements in filmmaking, VR and AR are reshaping how narratives are crafted and consumed. So, with a big round of applause, let us welcome Mr. Pradeep Joseph, the Director UX of Google India.
My father was a good person. After retiring from his teaching job, where he was a professor, he was extremely busy. He was taking care of my family, of course, when we were young, my sister and myself and my mother. And of course, he was the dearest papa to all his grandchildren. He used to be the go-to person if you have any trouble in our extended family, any conflicts, any issues to be resolved, be it in our community, church activities, etc. But his health was failing him. He had what was called as myelodysplastic syndrome, which required him to take blood transfusions every alternate week. But this did not kill his spirit. He was still active, driving and moving around and trying to be as helpful as he could with his slowly deteriorating health. Ultimately, in a very unfortunate way, he acquired an infection from a hospital. As you know, that hospital-acquired infections are one of the biggest in the medical world. With India, the statistics range from 11 to 60% chance of you to get an infection from a hospital. Very soon, he lost his ability to breathe on his own, was moved to an ICU and put on a ventilator. My father, who was a very people's person, who would always love to talk, love to crack jokes and then interact with people, was in an ICU, the cold storage room with intubations and pipes and beeps of machines all over the place, among the midst of the strangers. As a family, we were allowed to have visits, maybe 5 minutes a day, and then even in those 5 minutes or the brief moments that we had with him, when I could hold his hand, his eyes were telling me, "Son, take me out of here. I don't want to be here. I want to go home." But we were the dutiful family members. We were trying everything possible in our control and putting the trust in the hands of medical science to deliver him safely out of the ICU. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly a sad place wherein palliative care is relatively unknown in our society. Of course, Kerala and Kozhikode is one of the pioneers in terms of palliative care in the recent years, but still we are far, far away from creating a best of experience for our terminal patients, or what is called as the end of life goals. As statistics show, whether you are from India or from anywhere, the simple most ask for a person on the deathbed is to say, "Take me home. I want to be with my near and dear ones." Unfortunately, my father could not do that. He passed away in the midst of a bunch of strangers in that ICU without having any possible contact with any of his family members. Everybody loves a good story. We all have stories to share. Could be personal, just like what I said, but we also have stories for our daily livelihood, be it in your profession, in your career, in your workplace. There are many, many ways in which we need to convey the information, what we intend to do, in the form of stories. And we're going to talk about how visuals can change the narrative itself. So this is where we begin. how to tell a good story, right? We all have experiences, like I said, could be positive, could be negative, could have a lot of ways in which you could share the stories, but is there a structure? Is there some way I can narrate a good story? So all I'm sharing is what kind of worked for me in the past, and then kind of a framework which I typically try to follow. These are the 4 points which I would like to share with you in terms of how to tell a good story. With the first point being, set the context. If you go back to what I just said, right? I was setting the context in terms of the life of my father and how the family situation was, what was his illness, etc. Right? This is where you need to talk about the background, the problem space, the characters, the stakeholders. Now try to imagine a business problem you are trying to solve, right? What's the context? What's the background? What's the premise with which you are trying to impress your audience? Could be your stakeholders, could be your leadership, could be your management, right? Then comes the question of why. Why are you doing this? Is it for inspiration? Is it for motivation? Is it for funding? Is it for closing a deal? And what's the call to action? So this is the first step in which we look at it from setting the context. Once the context is set, this is where you start crafting the message. Now don't imagine because I said, hey, visuals have a powerful way of changing the narrative. Everything need not be visual. Even simple text, figures, statistics, etc. could work in terms of the quantitative data, or it could be some user journeys or experiences, personas which are a little bit qualitative in nature. So you have to think about how do you want to craft the message from a quantitative, qualitative, again depends, right? If you are purely talking about some data or the insights you want to convey to the stakeholders, it's not necessary you need to have qualitative, and vice versa as well. Now this is again an important aspect, picking the right tools. Why do we say that picking the right tools is important? This is where the power of visuals come in, right? As research has shown, well, of course you have heard, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And it's quite true, because our brains are tuned to look at visual information in a much faster, quicker way to grasp the ideas and concepts, right? Then we will talk about what kind of tools can we look at, right? Text charts, maps, it again depends on the context. Like I was saying, if we're just showing a progression chart, a simple bar chart could show. If you're showing a geographical distribution, a good map will do. And of course, video has become more and more powerful. If you're talking about a customer journey, all you can do is a nice capture through visuals to talk about the entire journey than maybe doing 30 PowerPoint slides, right? And of course, the cool stuff, the immersive as well as the multi-sensory experiences which we will briefly talk about. Now let me give you an example of why we need to have a good tool or a visual narrative, right? If you are in the HR community, just try explaining to somebody what is equity and what is equality, right? Of course, you have textbook definition of it which talks about blah blah blah, or you could show something like this, right? So this is where the power of visuals comes in, changing the narrative, changing the conversation, and getting to a deeper level of understanding in terms of what you are trying to convey, right? Of course, from a two-dimensional, we have a lot of examples of making it three-dimensional. These are all examples from SketchUp and other software wherein you could really create a more deeper level of experience for your audience in terms of creating better visuals, and a lot of these kind of three-dimensional tools are available even for those who do not have a deep tech knowledge, right? That's the power and beauty of technology today. Then comes the question of multi-sensory experience. Museums have always done it, bringing in a tangible object or an artifact and then creating the experience, connecting it with technology as well as the intangible ways of doing it. By the way, this is an experience, the example from the Indian music experience museum in Bangalore. At the next level, you might also have a completely immersive experience. Right? Irrespective of whether you are an art lover, you like Van Gogh or Monet or Raja Ravi Verma, probably a immersive experience could help you in terms of picking up something, and maybe increasing a level of sensitivity for your art. Right? Of course, what we've been talking about, be the museum or this kind of an immersive experience, you will still need a lot of physical structure, space, etc. But now it's a time of technology wherein you have everything within your own living room. You just have to wear a contraption, right? So this is from the Meta Quest 3. Of course, now everybody tries to boast of what new could be there, what could be the differentiator from a wearable perspective. But this is where again, why is it important for us? The storytelling tools, the mediums are changing and evolving from a static screen. And we have already seen good examples of how hologram as a technology could be utilized, right? And of course, this is the Apple Vision Pro, the big daddy of VRs and wearables. And for the $3,500 worth of it, I don't know whether somebody has experienced it or not. I am curious to look at it, but of course, looking for an opportunity to do so. Yeah. While these are all tools, now the question is, how can AI help me tell a good story? We have established the fact that why visuals are important in terms of telling your story, how it could change the narrative, and now how can I make a good story by some images? Should I just pick it up off Google? Should I look at it from some photographs, pictures? Are there ways in which I can create a good narrative based on some of the visuals which AI can help me? So this is where the power of companies like Google comes in, creating newer ways in which you can create those compelling visuals, right? So these are again still in the early stages, like we heard from Rajesh Nambiar, very, very early stages. We have a lot of distance to cover, but the future is very exciting. I am personally very excited for what's happening on the technology front. Now, from very simple image manipulations, wherein you can have a photograph and then you prompt to say, hey, can you add something else here, right? So these are again simpler ways in which you could enhance your visual narratives, right? And technology is available today to help you to do that. Or it could be a little more advanced, text to image. Show me an image of a person in an ICU with intubations and machines surrounded, right? Bingo. You could have an image created by the AI, the interface, be it Google or any other visual image generators, right? So this is again another example or the way in which text to image can help. Now we have gone beyond that. Now we have moved to text to video, in which simple command prompts can even develop or generate videos for you, and as wacky and as crazy as it could be. Okay? Again, the caveat is that these are still in the early stages, and we really need to use them with responsibility, especially in the cases wherein there is safety, security, and privacy of people involved. Right? Image manipulations, video manipulations could also fall into the gray area, and this is where we as creative people need to have that level of responsibility in terms of using technology with caution and making sure it's for the right cause. Yeah. Now these are all different kinds of tools and interfaces, affordances, ways in which you could interact with AI systems, or even how to tell a story. But then ultimately a tool is a tool, right? So we hear about generative AI or AI today, and exactly taking Rajesh's words, 5 years down the line we might be changing the language. None of these tools could be existing. It could be a completely different set of tools. We don't know, right? So it's up to the ingenuity of the human being who is using the technology that's going to make the difference. So somebody asked me the question over lunch, hey, with this AI coming in, will designers lose their job? I said, no, I'm excited for it because we are going to have better jobs, or no, more complex things to work on, because the technology is going to help us to do some of the mundane work, right? Now, the fourth and the most important point is based on what I just said. This is where the human ingenuity and your ability to create that narrative, your ability to bring that story together, using all the necessary ingredients for a powerful and a successful story, which talks about the context setting, the kind of visual selection, the data you want to present, the kind of action you want the audience to perform. If you're looking for approvals, what's the necessary kind of agreement that you need, etc., and helping the audience to connect the dots, right? You don't have to fill everything for the audience. You need to leave it to the audience, but your story should be compelling enough that they should be in a position to say, I get it now. Right? So this is where it is. And of course, the last point is where we have to package everything, because these days it's not necessary or always possible to have a face-to-face interaction with your audience. In that case, you should also be considering the fact, how do I do this storytelling in an asynchronous fashion, right? Now, one area where I have not really dealt is in terms of how to narrate the story in terms of the communication skills. Maybe that's a different story for another day, maybe for KTX 2025. Now, so just to recap and come back to where we started, right? Setting the context. Again, try to go back to what I said with respect to the personal story I shared, with respect to how the kind of the mood that you were brought in to get the message of why palliative care is important, because you could directly see it and the visual or the image was very powerful enough to tell you the story. I didn't have to explain a lot in terms of what was the situation there. Then the kind of statistics to reinforce that belief or that the idea that I put into your minds, and picking the tools and then stitching it all together, right? So this is where, ladies and gentlemen, we have a structure, we have the wherewithal, and we have the technology to create very compelling stories. And we all have stories to share, right? And this is our chance to make an impact in the world through our stories, because everybody loves a good story. Thank you.